Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel, Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Today I'm bringing you a long-form, story-driven deep dive into one of the most asked about relationships in Turkish entertainment, Yağmur Yüksel and Barış Baktaş. All the details are in this video. If you enjoy thoughtful breakdowns told clearly and calmly, please hit the like button, subscribe, and, if you'd like to support our work, tap the join button below. Thank you, and let's get into it. From the very first months of their careers, Yağmur Yüksel and Barış Baktaş stood out not only for what the camera captured, but for what it suggested: discipline, poise, and a kind of generosity that quietly elevates everyone on a set. That combination, talent and temperament, turned them into reference points for a new wave of Turkish actors who want big careers without giving up being decent, grounded people. Their professional paths crossed and, as often happens with great screen partners, something clicked. Not fireworks, craft. Their scenes developed a rhythm that felt earned. If you watched closely, you noticed the small choices that separate good acting from memorable acting: who holds silence a heartbeat longer, who steps aside to give their partner the light, who glances away at just the right moment to make a line land. Fans were drawn in first by the story, then by the feeling that something honest was taking shape behind the story. That sense of honesty is the thread running through their journey. In a landscape where the private can be auctioned to the highest bidder, Yağmur and Barış chose the harder route, protecting the parts of their lives that don't belong to the crowd. They worked. They avoided the megaphone. They posted sparingly and rarely in sync. And yet, in the quiet spaces between projects, audiences glimpsed a language of subtlety. Two captions that sounded like halves of one conversation, two photos that shared a horizon line, two career announcements that revealed perfect timing rather than orchestrated hype. What set them apart wasn't secrecy, it was intention. They understood that privacy isn't a wall, it's a garden. You don't forbid entry, you decide where the path goes. That logic guided the slow, steady way they revealed themselves to those paying attention. Crew members speak of a pair who arrive prepared, leave late, and spend their breaks not on spectacle but on scene work. We also heard, again and again, about a grace under pressure that shaped the mood of the set. When deadlines tightened, they got calmer; when doubts crept in, they listened before they spoke. Those habits create trust. And trust is where anything worth keeping begins. Weeks ago, the speculation that had hummed for months finally found its answer. It didn't arrive via a press conference or a magazine cover, it arrived in a way that fit them. There was no oversized ring reveal, no choreographed tableau. Instead, there was a modest evening shared with a small circle, close friends, a handful of relatives, a room lit softly against Istanbul's night skyline. People who were there describe it as simple and deeply felt. At some point, after the laughter, after the stories about difficult scenes that are always funnier once they're in the past, Barış stood, said a few quiet words about time and patience, and offered a ring that had been waiting for the right moment. No theatrics. Just a question asked in the only way that matters, sincerely. How did the rest of us find out? Not through a spoiler-hungry leak, but through a gesture that matched the moment. The next day, Yağmur posted a single sentence about joy outgrowing the room that holds it. Barış wrote about gratitude and care. There were no tags, no cross-promotion, no attempt to wrestle the narrative into a trend. Still, it trended. Within hours, fan pages were stitching timelines, hashtags were floating up the rankings, and messages of support poured in from Turkey, Spain, Italy, and Latin America, where their work has carved out communities that feel less like audience segments and more like extended families. If you want to understand why the news landed with such warmth, you have to look at how they've kept their professional and personal worlds in balance. Their schedules would exhaust most of us: pre-dawn call times, night shoots, table reads, ADR sessions squeezed between meetings. Yet colleagues say they protect a small daily ritual, a shared meal when schedules permit, a script exchange with notes marked in the margins, a debrief after pivotal scenes to keep the emotional arc coherent. Those habits do more than maintain a relationship, they feed the work. When two actors trust each other, they take risks. When they take risks, the scenes breathe. That reciprocity showed up on screen long before there was any official talk of engagement. You could feel it in how the camera lingered because it had reason to, in how the editing let the pauses live because the pauses had meaning. How often do we see a connection that is at once so precise and so unforced? It's chemistry built on preparation, not on gossip. That is why fans didn't just celebrate an engagement, they celebrated a way of being artists together. Of course, an announcement like this bends the orbit of everything around it: family expectations, brand offers, production calendars, even the etiquette of red carpets. And yet, if the past is any guide, Yağmur and Barış will manage the noise by sticking to the same quiet principles that got them here. We're told that both families are involved, that cousins are negotiating playlists, that aunties are debating dress codes, and that friends are lobbying for a celebration that feels like them, elegant without showing off, joyful without turning into a stage show. People close to the couple talk about dates as possibilities rather than deadlines. The priority is health, of the relationship, of their work, of the people who support both. With engagement comes the industry question: will this change the work? The answer that's drifting back from sets and offices is reassuring. Scripts are being read. Offers are on the table, some together, some separate. There is talk of a character study for Yağmur that runs quietly hot rather than theatrically large. There's an action-forward role for Barış that would push him into a new physical register. And yes, there are whispers about a project they might share again, not a repetition of old dynamics, but a mature story that asks what happens after two people choose each other and then choose, every day, to keep choosing. If that sounds like a mirror of real life, that's the point. The best fiction carries a pulse you recognize. Let's address the media weather system that always follows good news. Some outlets will insist on reading strategy into everything. A low-key caption becomes calculated minimalism. A dinner with friends becomes soft launch 2.0. You can't control that machine, you can only refuse to feed it. So far, they've done exactly that: no showy interviews about the engagement, no merchandise tie-ins, no algorithm-chasing photo drops. Instead, we've seen the occasional candid moment: a book on a cafe table, a pair of shoes left side by side near a doorway, a bouquet with no visible card. If you're paying attention, those fragments tell you more than any headline could. The fan community, for its part, has been exceptional. You've celebrated without invading. You've curated montages that focus on the work and on gestures of mutual kindness rather than on paparazzi frames. You've resisted the urge to demand behind-the-scenes access to something that is beautiful precisely because it's protected. That maturity matters. It sets a tone. It tells the industry that big audiences don't have to be loud to be powerful, they can be thoughtful and still move the needle. So what's next? Most likely, a season of planning done with the same deliberation that shaped everything before it. An engagement is not a finale, it's a prologue. It says, we have chosen a direction. It does not say, we've mapped the whole route. The decisions ahead, venues, ceremonies, who speaks when and about what, will be theirs to make, in their time. If a wedding follows, you'll hear about it when there's something real to say. Until then, the meaningful news will come from the places it always has: the work they offer, the care they show, the consistency with which they treat each other and the people around them. In the end, that's why this story resonates beyond fandom. It reminds us that love doesn't need spectacle to be big. It needs attention, patience, and the daily, unglamorous work of staying kind when schedules are cruel and expectations are heavy. It needs boundaries that keep the private without turning warmth into secrecy. It needs, above all, two people who understand that fame can distort, and who choose not to be distorted. Before we close, I'd love to hear from you. What do you admire most about the way Yağmur, Yüksel and Barış Baktaş have carried themselves, on set and off? If you could design a project for them now, would you pair them again or send them down different artistic paths to meet later stronger than before? Tell me in the comments. If this style of careful, long-form coverage is your thing, please like the video, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. And if you'd like to support what we do, consider joining our members community by clicking the join button. Your support helps us keep the focus on craft and character, not on empty noise. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and see you in the next video.